Welcome to the Sales with Bob podcast, where we give practical tips and strategies to help sales closers become legends and owners, coaches, and course creators build elite sales teams. Let's go. Hey, welcome to the Sales with Bob podcast. And as always, I am Bob, and we're going to go ahead and jump in and get started right away. So what I want to talk about today is I want to talk about buy-in. All right. So a lot of people use the word tie downs, very, very similar concept. I just tend to use the word buy-in. I think it's a little clearer. So that tends just what I focus on. So anyways, here's your deal is I believe that getting buy-in throughout the journey on the call is very, very important. And so very common, a lot of people will teach kind of the tie downs, and they'll teach them at a minimum, typically before you drop price, right? Like after pitch. And sometimes they'll do it like one other time in there. I personally think when I was closing consistently, really, I wanted to get buy-in probably 5 to 6 times before I got to the end. And the reality is what it comes down to is it just makes more people more comfortable saying yes, right? It gets towards buying intent. And that's what's really important in terms of the buy-in too, is I'm not talking about kind of a general buy-in, I'm talking about a very specific buy-in about taking action towards working with us. And those are two different things, because sometimes people will be good at kind of like the buy-in of like, and you do want to do that too, by the way, of like, hey, yes, I need to do something with this, but then you want to make it very specific in terms of attaching that to an action that you're going to do at the end of the call. So that's really, really important. And there are a couple of key areas. So like when I'm working with closers and training them, coaching them, managing that sort of thing, there are like a couple of areas where I'm like, hey, you have to do it here. Like these are the two places that there's two places for me that like, you must do them here. And if you do them and they're not buying in, you're not moving forward until they do, basically. All right. So those two areas, just to kind of get through those first, is once you've done kind of discovery, and however, again, I have my own framework. I've shared it somewhere on here, I'm sure. So you can take a look at that. But for me, discovery is kind of building the gap, right? Bottom of the gap, top of the gap, that sort of thing, getting all the information, getting their goals. I would put all of that in that category of discovery. You may break it down differently. Doesn't really matter. But the point is once you've done all of that, you've gotten all the information, you've gotten kind of the emotion, you've done the future pacing, you've done it all. Right? Before you move on to pitch, you're getting buy-in. You're getting strong buy-in at that point in time. All right. That's the first place before pitch. It's really simple. And the second place is after pitch, before you drop price. Those are the two most important areas to get buy-in, or what you might call tie downs. You need to do them there, right? So again, buy-in right before pitch, right after pitch, before price drop. You do them right then. And here's the deal is when you do them, they're like a wall, right? If you can't get it, then you're going back and you're figuring out why you can't get it. Because here's the deal. If you don't deal with it here or here, you're going to deal with it here, and it's going to be way harder. So you want to deal with it here before you get here. And then you want to deal with it here before you get here. So hopefully that makes sense. And it will be very, very helpful, because not only is it kind of psychologically, emotionally getting them and moving them towards buying intent and getting used to that idea of saying yes and moving forward. But what it's also doing is it's allowing you to take a temperature of where they're at. So you can get a sense of, hey, did I do a good job during the discovery, right? In terms of pulling out that pain and getting a sense of where they want to go and that sort of thing. And it allows you to do that, because if there's hesitancy, then you're like, oh, okay, like something's missing, right? So I got to go back and I got to figure it out, because if you can't get buy-in here, there's no way once you drop price, you're going to get buy-in. Right. So you want to be getting that buy-in before that they are like intent on taking action. So those are the two main areas. And I'll kind of give examples of those two. And then we'll talk about some other areas where you could do that, or how I like to think of this. So first, after you've done your discovery. So for me, typically, and it can adjust, the frameworks can adjust kind of on different offers and services. Predominantly, though, what I am typically teaching people is you're going to go kind of bottom of gap first. What's your current situation? Right. And then you're going to kind of get to top of gap. What are your goals? Where do you want to be? Right. And make that gap as big as possible. Then you're going to kind of do some reframe there around like, okay, cool. Like now, what if you don't do anything? Right. That kind of future pacing of like, hey, you need to become the person that to reach this goal. But what happens if you don't? Right. And kind of taking it away from them, getting a sense of like, okay, well, no, I don't want to do that. I refuse to do that. I have to do something. So you've done that. And so at that point in time, you're getting ready to go into pitch. And so it's kind of a conversation of like, okay, cool. Like, so it sounds like when you're telling me this is like pretty critical for you to get started with as soon as possible. Would you say that that's right? Yes. Okay. Like, tell me why would you say that's true? Just kind of give me and kind of ask a few more questions and then say, okay, cool. So like for you, there's no not doing something about this. Would you say that's accurate? Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, cool. So, we're going to obviously go through some of the details of the program, make sure it lines up with you and make sure that it's in good alignment. It's a good fit for you. I feel like you're a good fit for us. I feel like we can definitely help you. And I'll go through some details to make sure you can make sure that that's a good fit on your end. But assuming that assuming that everything kind of lines up with what you're looking for, is it fair to say that you're ready to get rolling with this and you're like ready to commit and get started and solve this problem working with us? What do you think? And so like so they're very specific buy-in, but I've already got like the emotional buy-in to doing something. But now, right before I get to pitch, I'm making it specific to us that like that action is actually working with us. Okay. So that's an example with that. And there's a lot of different ways to do it. And it depends on the person, what they've said, who they are, that sort of thing. But you got the general idea. Then you go through your pitch. And again, as I've taught before, with your pitch, it should be concise, should be relatively short, pretty straightforward, very, very, very clear about what the path is, what the resources are, all that type of things. Very clear so that it's not going to elicit a lot of questions and things like that. So you go through that because you want to kind of hold on to kind of the emotion and the dream and where they are and like all that, because honestly, that's what motivates all of us. So you want to hold on to that. So anyways, so you do your pitch, the end of the pitch, it's pretty simple. It's just like, okay, cool. Yeah. So like that, we've gone all here. So like, do you feel like everything we've talked about will help you reach? And I would probably even fill in some goals, but we'll just say goals in general right now. So do you feel like everything we just talked about will help you reach those goals that we talked about? Yes. Okay, cool. Is there anything you feel like is missing, or you feel like, yeah, like this is what you need to achieve what we've talked about? Yes. Okay, cool. So fair to say, like, we're good to go and we're going to make this happen today. Right now, that's the buying question of like, yes, I'm doing this. Okay. Now, so there's a couple different things happening. Some people might be excited, like, yeah, like if you've done a really good job up to that point, I'm like, yeah, man, like I'm ready to roll. Let's go. Right. And at that point in time, cool. Be like, okay, cool. Like then what I'll do is I'm going to share kind of how it works and get into the investment. Does that sound good? And you kind of move on to that. If there's any hesitancy though, right? So say you do that, but they're like, well, I won't get into the price hesitancy yet because I'll explain that in a minute. That's simple. But actually, so I'll do that first. So price hesitancy. So like you say it all and you're like, okay, cool. Like, so based on everything we talked about, it sounds like it's an alignment for you. So fair to say, like, we're going to get moving here today. We're going to do this. And they're like, well, kind of depends on price, right? Depends on how much it is, how much it costs, whatever. Okay. Yeah, cool. Like I completely understand. No worries. Obviously, I think you want to understand that. But a price aside, and assuming that kind of fits, fair to say that we're going to get you started here today. Right? See what they say. Because what you want to do is you want to deal with everything besides price. When you get to price, as best you can, you've dealt with it all before you get there. Okay. So, and then so you keep it. And if they say, well, so then at that point in time, if they're like, well, and there's hesitancy, then check on the hesitancy, right? And then don't be like, okay, well, let's get there and see how you do, right? Like, no, be like, okay, cool. Like, so let's talk about. I notice you're a little hesitant. Perfectly okay. So, what's the hesitancy about? What other concerns might you have besides price? Maybe speak to me a little bit about that. Get them to start talking. Right? Is it a doubt? Is there something maybe missing in the program you thought would be there? Are you maybe like just a little nervous about like you being able to do this? Like talk them through and figure out like what is it that's making them uncomfortable until you can get them to a point at which they overcome that. And if you can't, then that's a whole different approach, which would be a whole nother video in terms of, okay, what do you do from there? I just want to talk about the buying piece because I don't want to get too sidetracked. But let's assume that you work them through that. And then again, you get to the point, okay, cool. So again, price aside, based upon everything we talked about now, we kind of worked through all that and it all makes sense. Fair to say, like, you're ready to go and make this happen as long as, the price aligns with where you're looking. Yes. Okay, cool. Then you're going to get into price. Okay. So again, if you notice with both of those, one, it's getting them to psychologically get comfortable saying yes, because that's uncomfortable. Two, what it's doing is giving you a check-in to know, like, okay, is this person really in or not, or do they have doubts? right? And so you want to be able to assess that, and this is going to help you to do that. And those are the two main places that you want to do that. So I would say, without a doubt, whatever you're doing, start doing that in those two places. Now, for me, what I would encourage you is look for other places to pepper it in, right? It doesn't have to be quite as strong at all these other places, but a lot of times, so for example, I talk about kind of like bottom of gap, top of gap, and then taking it away. All three of those places, typically I'm doing it, right? So for me, bottom of gap, like we've talked about current situation, we're getting into kind of some of the like, whatever it is, pain points, things like that. And I'm typically like, okay, well, so it sounds like, I mean, what you're saying, like, I'm assuming like this is why you're here, right? Like they've just shared something difficult. And they're like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, so fair to say, like, this is something like you're pretty motivated to like get moving on because like you want to get out of the situation you're in. Yes. Yeah. Okay, cool. So like, so if we can make this all work, like you're ready to go, like you're motivated, it sounds like, and we can kind of get you rocking. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah. So just out of curiosity, then like, so let's talk about the kind of the fun side, right? Like assuming you do, like we get you moving forward, like when we do that at the end of this call, right? Like what are the goals? Like look, and then you get into goals to have that whole conversation. Then once you've painted the picture, right? Like what does a typical week look like now? Typical month? What kinds of things are you doing that you weren't doing before? How does that feel? All that at the top. And then what you're doing is then again, it's like, wow, like that sounds pretty solid. Like, does that like inspire you to want to like kind of take action and really do this? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, cool. So like, are you going to let anything get in the way of you doing this? Or are we like, we're pretty much ready to rock? What do you think? Yeah. Okay, cool. So you get that buy-in, and then in there, what I'm going to do, then I'm like, okay, yeah, like awesome. I appreciate that. But I just want to ask you like, and I know you just said like you're kind of ready to rock, but I just want to think about this for a minute. If you didn't, right? If for whatever reason you kind of change your mind or whatever, like where's that going to leave you and how's that going to feel like being in the spot that we talked about? Like, is that even an option for you? Right. And kind of take it away a little bit, go through some of the pain again, and then get the buy-in one more time. So that I'll typically do that type of thing. And then there's going to be other places where I'm going to do it too, where you can tell they're very passionate about something or very emotional about something. Those are moments where I'm going to get that buy-in. So for me, that's always like there's a light bulb going off, like, okay, like this is a good time to kind of get that buy-in. And again, this isn't a manipulative thing. I'm going to say that probably in a lot of my videos because I want people to understand this. This is a helping them see, like when they talk about something they're passionate about, because most people don't go after their dreams. Most people are too afraid to. So we want to help them. And in many ways, I like to say, like a sales coach, we're helping people get out of their own way. All right. So when I see something they're passionate about or emotional about, I want to key on that because that's why they should be doing this. And I want to remind them of that. And I want to get them to say that because they're the ones that need to take action, not me. Right. So super, super important. So that's kind of buy-in. And again, I think it's so important. And what you'll see is like, I have some guys that are like, they're good closers and they're getting to like 25, 30, maybe even 35% or close. And a lot of times this is kind of that next level, is basically adding this in, and they're going to start to see like a 5-10% bump in close once they do this consistently and kind of create it within their flow. So I would strongly encourage you to do that, get people to be thinking about kind of future pacing, kind of what does that look like, but then also getting them to like psychologically get comfortable with saying yes. And then also allows you to kind of do that assessment of where are they really at. And then just making sure when you understand they're not there yet, do the work to get them there before you move forward. All right. So hopefully that's helpful. And I encourage you to go ahead and apply it. If you have any questions about this, anything you want me to go deeper on, again, as always, go ahead, drop it. Let me know. If you could like, subscribe, share, I would really appreciate it. Any comments below, I'll take a look at anything I can do to help. All right. Good stuff. And go close some deals.